woo! With Steve Ryan and my man, one who may sin. All right.
What's up? What's
What's
up?
going on today? Like what we want to hear what kind of music you making, what's up?
Yeah, so I experiment with like a few different elements of sound, primarily hip hop, rap bass, but also there's we incorporate elements of like metal and EDM, trap, like a really aggressive, like intense, introspective type of energy, So like that's my whole take on it. I like to have like elements of like consciousness, like dispersed throughout the tracks and everything like that. So, but yeah, that's my whole thing. That's pretty much my lane, you know. But
Oh wow, sound like you got a lot of influences. Like who would
yeah,
you say is like your top few influences?
a wide variety of influences. A lot of like old school rap, hip hop. Definitely DMX is up there, you know. But yeah, if I would say like a top five, top 10, yeah, like Tupac, Biggie, got to be in there. Eminem, Jay Z, uh, Nas, I like Big L. Like I said, DMX, Cannabis. I like, and so far as like contemporary, recent times, definitely Kendrick, Denzel Curry. I don't know how familiar you are with, you know, that lane and
Yeah.
everything, but yeah. So like, yeah, definitely a wide variety. So far as like metal, um, I'm not as, in tune, but I definitely have metal influences. Marilyn Manson, Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit. I don't care what people's perception of my taste is or whatever. Um, but yeah, I like a lot of stuff. A wide variety of different things.
Yeah, I know one of your songs. I was like, he got to have some funk somewhere. Like you can it just somewhere buried down
Probably.
underneath.
What did you check out by chance? If you
I
remember.
forget the exact name of it, but it was just a way that it was just it didn't remind me of typical hip hop. It was like a difference.
Yeah,
Like you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like okay, all right, I can vibe with this. Like it reminds me of like if somebody wasn't fully all hip hop, like if they were into other genres, they could still connect to your
right.
stuff.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. Now that you bring that up, yeah, some of my more like old school, underground influences, like Del the Funky Homo Sapien, like hieroglyphics.
Okay.
You know, yeah. So like definitely in my original sound, we've kind of like evolved and we have
Okay.
like, yeah. So like it depends, and I have to ask that, because like what era, were you listening to? Like that kind of gives me some more context. I could tell you because my influences change. Just like
Right.
life change, and that's also a ever prominent, how do you, I guess, theme, or concept, in my music as well. Like we as individuals on the individual level evolve and change over time. So it only makes sense. It's just natural, that our personalities do, our sound does,
Yeah.
because if you like stagnate, that there's no growth, and growth is an essential part of my brand and who I am, and if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So we can't
I
we
like
can't
that.
proceed,
You're not growing, you're dying.
the universe is forever expanding, you know what I mean? So I just I just like to be a conduit, and a reflection of my perception of the universe, and I hope to broaden that perspective out and communicate that as effectively as possible, between each each of us, So,
Right, right.
but yeah,
That
yeah,
makes sense.
right,
And
right.
I know big question that everybody's gonna have: where did one who may have sinned come from? Like, what's the? I know you've been asked that before. I know, man.
Right. That name, right? Yeah. No, for sure. So, to begin with, my original name, my given name by my parents was Omari Malik Ahmed. So I just took the initials, and it was OMA. And so at first I was just OMA, and that's even why, you know, you'll hear me in my music sometimes. Like I still say like OMA, you know, and that's why it's OMA, not OWMA, you know.
Okay.
So and then from just addressing myself as OMA, I was in college rapping and everything like that, and one of the homies, like my top fan at the time, you know, he was like, OMA, I like that. He coined the term one who may ascend, you know. And I was like, yo, that's kind of hard. You know? It's like, so it just kind of like stuck like that. And yeah, I've been rocking with it ever since. And you know, he had his own connotations associated with that name to begin with, you know, and I had mine. And you know, with that, it just kind of evolved over time, just like, you know, the themes of growth and evolution and everything that we just spoke about, you know.
Right.
So it's like one who may ascend, you know, into your purpose. And that if the name itself in my and that's what makes the name so unique too. It's not specific, it's not individual specific, you know.
Right.
It can apply to every person differently based on their connotations, you know, associated with the name. Like I've heard some people think like it's a Christian organization, and it can be, you know.
Right.
That's not all it is in my perception, you know. But just like we have all these different phrases, and no language is perfect, right? But a whole bunch of people could say the word love, for example. That's probably like the best, you know, easiest, most universal example. You can ask 10 different people what the word love means to them, and you might get like 10 different answers. Or even with that, the people that answered one way may answer a different way if you ask them, you know, years later or years before, you know, that type of thing. So the name itself is ever evolving as we are. And it's also a commentary on the duality of man as well, because there's the possibility that you may not ascend, or you know, what you may ascend, but that's according to one person's perspective as opposed to another person's perspective. You know, you to them you may be ascending, but to somebody else you may be descending or whatever. So it's just all this, you know, a duality. It's a commentary on the universal perspective, you know. And when I make music, it's often not just from my, you know, perspective, because that's limited, but it could also be from a perspective of a particular group of people. It could be yeah, or throughout the course of history, you know, that type of thing. So that's a
Wow.
little bit behind the name and my perspective of it, how it came of the origins and everything like that. Yeah.
So basically, it came from like fan supporter, and then it sounds like it's evolved into who you've evolved into,
Right.
which goes back to the beginning of this, where you were like, I'm everything, metal, hip hop, this, that,
Right.
you know, like ever
Exactly.
evolving, like not wanting to be boxed in.
Can't be limited, you know.
Yeah.
No limitations, you know.
Right. So it
Yeah.
seems like your audience, like you, like a supporter or a listener of your music is going to be somebody who's open minded and
Right.
who
Right.
really wants to ascend.
Definitely. That's definitely another essential, you know, theme reoccurring in the brand. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of this old show on TV, Stargate, like Stargate Atlantis, and in that
Sounds familiar.
all they
Yeah.
did was talk about ascension, ascension. We're trying to ascend, you know, like,
Huh.
and really, it kind of relates to what you're saying, but in a different way, because that was more about they're shedding everything. They're shedding the body. They're just energy, and they're getting rid of anything that holds them back. So if we compare that to like who you are, that's what it sounds like you're doing. Like not in the same way as the show, but in your own way. Any limitations you want to hold back. You know,
Right.
you might decide to do country with some
Right.
metal, with some rock on a song. Who knows?
Right. No, that's exactly. I feel like I'm gonna have to check that out now. Stargate. That sounds really because it really relates to like I really resonated with what you said. It's like shedding, you know, like the outer layers, you know, and focusing more inward, you know, and yeah, that comes with like identity, right? And
Right.
eventually, when you start shedding like these superficial layers of what we call our identity, right? We all realize that we are one.
Right.
We embody this bigger universal consciousness, and that ties into the name as well,
Right.
So no,
That makes
definitely.
sense. Yeah. So do you how are you with like collaborating with other artists? Like how do you view collaborations? Because I know some people view it like competition, we're gonna have a beef, and then others is more collaborating.
Yeah. For one, I'm going to start off with saying two things. I'm really open to collaborate with like any and everybody as long as the song makes sense for
Right.
me contextually. Really. Um, like I've had this like I've internalized this saying like I'm a sucker for a good song. You know,
Right.
so like as long as that makes sense to me too. Um, I do want to do like more collaborations. I
Mhm.
feel like I don't have, and I have a couple. I have come to think of it, I do have like quite a few low key, but yeah, I'm always going back to the name, right? Like that, you're sharing a platform, you're bonding with somebody like another human being, and not just that individual, but like their whole fan base. You're resonating with their frequency, right? So
Right.
that gives me another additional perspective, that I can add like in my Batman utility belt, so to speak. So like, okay, I can draw from this inspiration and vice versa. Now, so
Mhm.
far as the competition aspect of it, I wouldn't say there is an element of competition, but like I'm always, the way I look at it, at least, I'm always competing with myself, my previous self to do better. Like that again, tying back into the name. Like I truly embody this. This is like who I am. And like people ask me or give me a hard time, like, why don't you go by your name instead of like a title or something like that? Because like it's not for me. I don't really, how do you say, subscribe to the idea that we are here for ourselves. Like I
Right.
feel like we're here for a greater purpose. So like if I can give like people something to aspire to, like as well as myself,
Mhm.
like we create this iconic, legendary, mythological figure or creature of ourselves, so it gives us a standard to look up to or something to aspire to, as opposed to like, a name is or a title is just something that you were in the past. Like I'm trying to look forward. But I'm kind of getting off topic here, going back to the name.
Oh no,
But
no, go ahead. It's making sense.
my bad. You got to stop me. Let me know when I'm just like going off on a tangent. Because like I said, like this is really who I am. Like so, like this really gets me going. But yeah. So far as the competition aspect, I'm really only competing with myself. In my previous self. But like, there's this fine line between competing with myself and also, like I said, resonating with the frequency, of the other artists. So like there's a fine line, and that's kind of a part of the puzzle. Like for me, I don't know, maybe yeah, I can ask you for your perspective on this,
Mhm.
being an artist as well. Um, you ever feel like making music is kind of like a puzzle? It's kind of like a challenge, Like I have this thing myself personally, like I don't like making the same song twice, So like a lot of my music will be like totally different. They'll have like similar themes, maybe,
Mhm.
or like qualities, but like there aren't really two, like other than maybe like production, there aren't really two songs that are like quite alike, quite similar to one another. So I always find like that's always an objective, a challenge of mine, to make something unique, different, maybe something that can appeal to another audience. Like if we're taking this analogy, this theme of traveling outside of our comfort zone into a specific, a specified direction, right? You're not, unless you're going in circles, you're not going to make the same footprint twice. You know what I mean?
True.
So
True.
like, I don't know. That's just how my mind works. And especially with collaborating with other artists, So that gives me a different frequency to vibe on entirely. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's also a question for you as well. You ever like, do you look at making music as like a challenge, or like a puzzle?
Well, for me, that piece isn't a challenge for me. The challenge for me personally is I hear so much music at the same time in my head that
Hmm.
sometimes it's hard to I have
Channel.
to separate it. You know what I mean? Like I
Okay.
may work on 3 or 4 songs at the same time. Like I had a dream about it. I'm hearing all these instruments and all this different stuff. I'm hearing like the whole song, like everything. You know what I mean? So sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge.
That's
You know?
I hear you. I resonate with that. I don't have that as often, but I have had that before.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's like different channels, and so what do you do with that? Do you like record it like all at once, or like do some things maybe get forgotten, or
Well,
left by the wayside?
Well, what I normally do is like if something hits my head, I'll try to get on the keyboard and because if I just bebop it in the voice note, it may be harder to remember like what was the texture, what was the tone of that. But if
Yeah.
I can at least get the rhythm of what I was trying to, what I'm hearing, at least on the keyboard, now I have it as a reference.
Hmm.
And
Right.
something that I've started doing lately, I would say this year, because sometimes I co-produce too, and I've been doing like playlists where I'll try to, if I'm let's say I was helping to co-produce a song with you, what I would do is like get these playlists and try to get not copy the songs, but to see okay, what element of the song am I hearing? Am I hearing a guitar? Am I hearing a piano? What type of guitar? All right. Am I hearing a dirty guitar, a clean guitar? And then if I can find a song that has the guitar that I'm looking for, now that's a reference and I tag it. Like this song is for this, this type of guitar. That way, if I need to go back to my notes, it's a reference. Because the mind says it's easy to remember that if it's just one song. But if you've done this like 10, 20, 30, 40 songs, you're
Right.
not going to remember 10 songs back what you were trying to remember. So I think like for us as artists, to some degree, we all need to know how to do something like that, regardless of what our genre is, so that when you're creating, you can speak the same language of other musicians and artists and producers and say, hey, this is what it was in my head, this sound, and this is how I want this sound to go.
That's
So,
deep.
which leads to another thing, which is you just mentioned that you hate repeating the same thing twice. Well, it's almost like that might can be a challenge for yourself. Like, okay, can I go at this similar thing, but with a different twist?
Yeah.
Since you hate doing that and you never know what you might come up with.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
hopefully that answered your question.
No,
So,
absolutely. And I'm starting to get in production myself. Maybe
yeah,
I'm dabbling like here and there for like the past year or so. And
yeah.
yeah, what you said, I'm definitely gonna take tips and like labeling things. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
It
And
makes it easier. It makes it easy, man. That really is what all that production boils down to, especially if you're an artist
right,
and you're into production, you got to find a way to track stuff.
right,
There it is just other than that, it's going to get lost.
right.
Unless it's a tune that really stands out, like a song like you got that 1 or 2 songs that just stand out and they're not going to go away until you get them out.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So, you
No, that
know,
checks out. And going back to this analogy, you said tracking something.
yeah.
You have to track all of these things, and I feel like
Mhm.
that's essential for growth. And
Yep.
like development in ourselves. Like we have to to make progress. It has to be trackable and measurable, right? So
Yes,
like
sir.
time, for example. If we're going to see that we're heading in that direction, there's this saying. How can you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been, right? Because otherwise you
Yeah.
just going in circles, right? So like, yeah, like we have to know our history to know like our future. And there's also the other saying like there's nothing new under the sun, you know.
That's
But
true.
yeah, so like yeah, I'm learning how to produce myself, and yeah, I'm definitely going to be taking tips on everything that you just said. Like, and it's another thing to bring up another analogy. I find it I don't know. It's kind of been weird. It's because I'm contextualizing like this past year, maybe the past 2 years or so, where I've been slipping more and more into production.
Mhm.
Because at first, I was like I said, I was trying to get away from like creating like the same thing over and over. Um, Maybe this could be another question for you too. Do you ever feel like once you've, I'm not going to say like mastered your craft because I don't know if there's ever such a thing, but when you feel like you're coming into yourself of like developing, like crystallizing a style, like I don't know if you're familiar with like the Bruce Lee quote of there is no style, like be like water, my friends, you
Right,
know,
right.
and not subscribing to a style, but being formless, shapeless, like water. But do you ever feel like when you're finding like your sound and you're crystallizing that, do you feel like you have less of a palette to work with, or do you feel like you've colored in everywhere? I remember like there was an Eminem interview or analogy that I was watching. He said it's getting hard for him to like create something new. And I think it was Eminem and Lil Wayne, and they were interviewing each other, and they said they have to like look up, they have to Google their lyrics to make sure it was something that they hadn't repeated already. Like lyrically, because like if you're an artist and you have like this palette, this template to work with, these constraints, so to speak, and you feel like, like when you just start, it's one thing, you know,
Right.
uh, you have like all of this room to work with. But when you've been painting and you've been at it for like 20 years, like plus, and you have like that longevity and the accolades and accomplishments, etc., you know, I guess like a couple of different things that could happen. You could be either boxed in artistically by yourself and your
Mhm.
own personal perceived limitations and restraints, etc., or whatever fan base that you have could start to limit you as well. I was just having this discussion with a homie about you familiar with Kid Cudi,
Oh
right? And
yeah.
he kind of started painting and drawing outside of the lines, and his fan base was like, "Nah, bro, I don't like this," I don't and like, and he started getting like backlash in that sense. Or, I guess out of the three possibilities, you could become a caricature of yourself, and it's like one of those things where like art imitates reality. I forget the
Yeah.
saying, something like that, where like you become known so well for this one thing and specialized in this one thing. Like it's kind of like what we learn in the program. It's like you focus on the top percentage of your results. So if you see that this one thing is working like really well, why do you have to do anything else?
Yeah.
Like McDonald's. Like we have this menu, right? We're not selling anything else but burgers. Why don't we just stick to selling burgers, right? Like and it you start becoming like a grotesque like figure of yourself, and like, okay, like now you're a one trick pony, kind of
Right.
thing. And you again box yourself in, and I don't want to be like contained like in any of that, so like that's why I said that's kind of like what led me to the moment where I was like, I feel like I got my pen game on point. So I'm gonna go over here to production, and I haven't mastered production like in any in any capacity, you know. But I'm just starting to hear like even in myself like it's starting to sound it's starting to get repetitive,
Right.
and like that kind of like turns me off. It's like, okay, this is gross now. Like like this, like, and so like I don't know what that's gonna lead to. I don't know if that's gonna like lead to like a fusion, like immersion of the two. But and I kind of forgot my original question.
It was about being boxed in, you know.
Right. Do you feel
Yeah.
like mastery like leads to you being boxed in? I don't know. They have like so many different
Oh,
examples. Like I look at Picasso too, and like he was originally boxed in, right? If you see his work when he was 25 as opposed to like, I don't know, like 75 or like 95, two totally different things,
right.
you know?
It's that
But
growth.
right, right. And like I also think, like my homie who gave me the name, we were talking and everything like last night, like he trains, he lifts weights, right?
Mhm.
and he's really heavy into. At first, he was in powerlifting. Now he's in bodybuilding, and I guess there's kind of that same similar aspect to it as well, of growth. You know, if we sculpt our careers or our art, you know, sculpture, you know, he's sculpting his body, and he has to break through those limitations that he once had to evolve, you know, into something else. So I don't know, what's your perspective on that,
Well, I think it depends on, you know, the person, your personality, how you think, how you approach things. Because for me, I'm my worst, I'm not going to say critic, but I'm always about growth. So even if other people say I've mastered something, I don't personally see myself as that way. And I'm always
internalize it. Right.
You know, looking to expand. And when it comes to, like you were mentioning Eminem, you know, feeling boxed in and things like that, I kind of go by a different tune to where, like, I'm going to do what I feel, and whoever likes it, and whoever don't. You know, so it just means, you know, if some supporters don't like this group of stuff, then they can just hang out with the other stuff until I come back around to it.
See, and I hear you. And I totally did I cut you off?
Oh, no, you good.
Okay. I hear you, and I respect that, but okay. So just to add another element, you know, another layer, icing on the cake, right? So we as artists, as individuals, etc., we have our own personalized goals, you know, and aspirations. And sometimes, tell me if I'm wrong here, those can be incompatible, not always, but can potentially be incompatible with reality, right? So if we're talking about, like, having commercial success, you know, for example, and you see, like, this one thing is selling really well, like fucking like Instagram likes, right? You know, I've heard, like, people see what's working well with them for their fan base in the algorithm, right? So they keep doing that same thing as opposed to experimenting, but now they've been boxed in by the constraints they've placed on themselves in regards to their fan base, you know. And we talked about, like, McDonald's, commercially successful, but I guarantee you, like, a lot of other places, people, whoever, can make a much better hamburger, etc., but commercially successful, you know. So, like, I guess the challenge is always, like, finding that fine line between your growth as an artist, you know, on the individual level, and what resonates with the masses, like, commercially, you know. So, like, I guess that's always the debate, right? So
it just depends on where you're at.
Right.
Depends on where you're at, what you're wanting, what's important to you. You know, like, if someone is an artist who's gotten successful and now they're making a great living off this one thing, it's going to be harder to veer off if they're dependent upon that. You know what I mean? But if they're not as dependent on that and they're all about what they want to do, it starts to matter a little bit less. I mean, I can get it from both angles, because as a business person, I understand that when you turn on a certain channel, you expect to see, you know, you're not going to be looking at History Channel for what's on sci-fi. You know? So I understand that, you know, with the marketing aspect of giving people what to expect, but it all boils down to if you're just experimenting a little bit, or if this has become who you are, and then that's like, take Pink, for example. When she first started off, she was great. She had, like, a couple of great R&B songs, and they tried to box her into that. And once she got successful with that R&B, I think it was like Most Girls or something, I forget the name of the song. But when she got successful with that, she took a chance. See, if other people had took this chance, they could have been, like, shelved, put on the shelf, or not succeed. But she took a chance and went over to what she wanted to do.
Right.
And it's blown up. It's actually working even better. The fans came with her. Right. Whereas you have someone like Sheryl Crow, don't get me wrong, I love Sheryl Crow, but when she evolved from the pop style to the country style, just based on what I've seen when I've researched it, it hasn't translated as well as Pink's did, if we were to compare it. but she's financially okay. So she still is on that path, and whoever don't like it, just don't like it. They can just listen to their old stuff, you know? So it works both ways. And another thing an artist can do is, like, if you feel like you're getting tired of something or boxed in, start experimenting with the other genres.
Yeah.
Start experimenting with music you hate. Now that's a challenge right there. If you
That's why I hear Dr. Dre does.
Yeah.
You listen to stuff that nobody else listens to, that he don't even want to listen to.
Yeah, because if you can do something with something that you take an element from some, like whenever I'm building a song, you know, I always even after I'm done with the main part, I always try to say, okay, what's something, I'm not going to say hate, but something that probably isn't my taste. And I'll try to see if I can get an element of that. And it ends up just changing the whole, like, wow, okay. But I think at the end of the day, it's a fine line. You got to do what fits you. And if it's too far off, it might just end up being another brand.
I think you said a lot of things there. Like, and I like taking what you say and like broadening it out, you know, like, excuse me, for everything, you know, can be used as an analogy, you know, and we could use all of this for like life, right? You know, like go and talk to people that you don't like, you know, or run at fear, right? And you might find, you might learn something. And that's what all of this and my music, you know, is about. Like, all of this is like the grounds, like the training grounds for broadening our perspective, you know, on life, you know, and becoming that one, you know, instead of just identifying with a particular segment, you know, of society, you know.
Right.
But yeah, there were some other things in there that you said too. I think there were like at least two other things. I didn't want to bring this up just yet, but it kind of reminds me of the Prince versus Michael Jackson debate. You know, you got one like more commercially successful, and then you have the other one, like they would say, like, he's the true artistic expression of the soul, right? You know,
right?
So like, I guess I think one of my questions to you would have been, so what do you do? Like, it seems like, and maybe that's not a fair question, because it all depends on like the context of the artist and where they are in their career, etc., and like their approach, you know. Like, do you put like the cart before the horse? You know, which one do you value? You know. So yeah, maybe, yeah. I guess that's all up to an interpretation, I guess.
Yeah, I you know, I have an opinion about it. Like, my opinion is this, and I know it may not be the easiest thing for everyone to do, because some of us have the right brain, some have the left brain, some have both brains. But I think, like, as artists, you know, as they're generated, first of all, I think all artists, and this is just my opinion, should take some business classes, look at some business webinars, subscribe to business people. You know, learn, even if you hate business, learn business anyway, because with the artists and with the money of things is so up and down. There's no constant. So if you can, as you're making money, learn to invest the money, and eventually have your lifestyle to where, I'm not trying to go too much on the tangent, because I'll go on a tangent on this side. So, but have it to where you're not dependent upon the money from the artistry, and get to that point, then it's more free. Because I feel like a lot of what you just asked, a lot of it is based on a person's situation, how much they need money in that moment for their living. Are they bound by any contracts with any labels or any other parties? I think you have all that, you know. So it just depends on the person. I mean, and you can have someone who stays in their lane and make that, but then make some stuff outside of that. And maybe, you know, if it gets to a point where they're enjoying both, they might have to separate the other part into another brand. I mean, that's what I did with the motivational speaking stuff. That's a whole separate brand. It's the Abundant Lion. Now, that doesn't mean that as Steve Ryan, I don't come on and say some motivational things,
Right.
But when you turn on Steve Ryan, you might get music, or you might get, they know they're going to get either music or poetry or other artists, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With maybe some motivational stuff in there. You go to Abundant Lion, that's all motivational mindset, business, that's all that. That's the brand. And it had to be separated because if I had kept it all under Steve Ryan, it would have been confusing.
Yeah.
You can mix poetry with music, but it's hard to mix motivational as a separate genre with the music. It's very difficult.
But that's all who you are, though.
Exactly. So now you got Steve Ryan and you got the Abundant Lion. It's the same person, but they're separated because they have different audiences. Some audience blend over both. Some like the motivation, hate the music. Some love the music, hate the motivation. Some love both. I'm fine either way. Just come into the community.
Right. That's kind of another question I was going to ask. And maybe some of these questions are more specific towards you, but like, do you have a focus or even a preference on either one, or is it just?
I love them both passionately.
Okay.
It's almost like trying to tear two twins apart.
Yeah.
It's I love them both. If I had to shut one down, I wouldn't. It's no way, because motivating people and inspiring people, that's my core. And from what I get about you, from the time I've known you, you come across to me as like a deeper thinker. Like, you don't like to think in the box, and you like to put things out in the way to where people can kind of like come to a conclusion themselves. You're not really big on trying to tell people what to think. It's more of like, I'm drawing you this body of water and it's up to them to call it a lake.
Right.
So and that's in your music. Like, regardless of whether is Oma from the past or one who may ascends now in the future, all that is within you. That's like a similar characteristic.
Yeah. That's interesting and heartwarming that you say that, because that lets me know that I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
You always get that positive affirmation.
Yeah, because this wasn't planned. It's not like we're going to say this on the thing. It was just like, okay, we just gonna flow with it. That's just the impression I get. That's what I get. Like, it's interesting because it comes across like you're not going to just be just another hip hopster. It's going to be different. You don't know what you're going to get with you, and that is your brand. So actually, you have freedom from that stuff you just talked about.
Okay.
because people are expecting, they may get a little metal in it, they may get that. Now, the reason, I'll tell you why commercial success, and this is just my take on it, commercial success, the reason why they try to box it in is because they're about numbers and analytics first.
Right.
Yeah, because you have to understand, I had the opportunity for 3 different record deals, and I turned them all down, and everybody who wasn't into major music, family and all that, was like, you're stupid and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, nope, you're not stupid. Because you do the math, you can make more with blah, 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 blah. But the reason why they box people in is because with marketing, it's like targeting. They want to target certain people, and it's more expensive to target more people. They want to
you can track it, something that you could track.
Yeah, and they want to be able to pin it. So it's all about the money. It's all about the business model. Who's to say your fans won't like them all?
Right.
Who's to say they won't like all that? And then whoever the person you mentioned that went outside of that box and some of the fans didn't like it, how do they know that was the majority of the fans? Maybe that was just the loudest voices. Because sometimes the negative voices can be the loudest voices. And you kind of have to, this is where it comes into going with your gut. Like, if your gut is telling you you're on to something, you almost have to see it through, because that negative soothsayer is going to come through first a lot of the times. Like, nah, that sounds like crap. It's like, well, turn that off. Wait till you get to the ones that say, hey, wow, this is awesome. You know what I mean? So I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing that I like what you're doing is you're trying to be true to yourself. No, you're not trying. You are being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you do that and keep honing your craft, and create a way, you're gonna be all right. Your fans gonna come with you.
I'm glad you think so.
Oh yeah, I know so, man. It's this isn't about me today, but I'm a walking example of it. Because a lot of times, a lot of my music, if you were to check out a lot of my music, especially before like what's coming out now, a lot of it didn't fit commercial. And a lot of people say, oh, you need to go at it this way. Like I did album Nothing But Live. I said, I don't want any electronic sounds. I want all live instruments. Oh, don't do that. It's not. And, okay, yeah, it didn't hit top 40, but it still generated publishing and licensing and it's on radio at different places around the world. So to me, that was an accomplishment.
Right.
To be able to do that in the world of electronics.
Right.
So that's why I say this is relative to about what you want as a person. If it's all about the financial success, then I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with wanting financial success. I'm not saying that at all. But it's going to have to be a point to where you figure out a way to generate the finances. If you truly want to be like more toward creativity, even if that means sacrificing some commercial models, you're going to have to find a way to have the money generating separately. Yeah. That way you won't be held hostage by what you're thinking you're supposed to do. That's my opinion about it.
Yeah, and that's the opposite of freedom, and that's and that's what I do this for, freedom.
Right. So, because at the end of the day, you only need so much money, like really. Just saying. I mean, unless you just want, you got to have the bigger house, you got to have the bigger this. You want a private jet. I mean, if you can fly first class everywhere you go, I mean, you can buy a ticket anytime. I mean, so I mean, I'm not saying having riches isn't like a bad thing, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to our priorities. That's how I feel about it. Right. And that answers really all of those questions that you have. You know what I mean? Because if it's about the music and you got your people with you connecting to you through the music, you're going to be all right.
Right.
And not only that, but if you have anything else you do outside of music that is still part of you, you can build that at the same time.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, like, I know some other stuff in there. Like, what else do you do outside of music? And I know some motivation in there. I can just see you talking to people like, "Hey, why are you doing this, man? Come on, get together."
That is interesting that you say that, because I am in classes right now to transition a bit into like having motivational speeches in addition to like the music aspect as well. So that was very interesting. I didn't know that you were in that, but so that's definitely a thing as well. But I'm just about exuding inspiration and motivation in like all aspects, of the brand itself.
Why I think artists are good motivational speakers? Like for the ones who are, because on some level, being an artist, you're empathetic.
Yeah.
You feel people's energy on some level. Some may be more than others, but it's almost like when you're motivating and inspiring people and feeding off their energy. Like you can make a song and you can hear that same song 1,000 times when it's being mixed and all this stuff. And then you're tired of the song, you don't want to hear it. But as soon as you hear other people get excited, it makes you want to hear it. Like, okay, all right. Like you're listening for the first time, and that's because of energy.
Yeah.
That's all that is energy. And this is why I'm so big on the mindset stuff, is because instead of being focused on this is going to go wrong, and I'm not saying don't be business people, but this is going to go wrong, that's going to go wrong. But if we focus on, what, something's telling me to try this, I'm going to try it. I know it's going to work out. And just let it unfold. It goes back to that Pink example. She took a chance on what her gut told her, and that made her like blow up even more.
Right.
And there was a lot of people at the time, if you look at her history, because sometimes I'll look at behind the music kind of stuff, told her, no, you're going to ruin your career. You're going to get blacklisted. You can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And she did it anyway.
So for me, you said something important, because I always have this discussion about you said like energy, and
Mhm.
the way I guess I contextualize that is like communication, as well, you know, and we were talking about being yeah, transitioning into motivational speaking, and that sort of thing, like, because artists will be great, communicators, they're like
Right.
mediums, like I guess sages, or mediums for, they're translators and interpreters of energy, you know
Yeah.
and to put that in a way that can be digested, by feeble human minds, that's a talent in itself. I feel like another thing that is an undertone of what we're talking about too is optimizing, not just an artist, but human potential,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. You
Yeah.
have to be attuned, and this comes with a level of self-awareness that, again, typically artists tend to have, not always, but usually, self-awareness, right? You have to know your strengths and your weaknesses, and you have to be cognizant, aware of your surroundings, and not just that, but there's a certain level of resourcefulness required, in regards to your team and the resources
Mhm.
that you're allotted, and that's really essential, for growth in any aspect as well. Like, what you're good at, you have to know what you're good at and what you're weak at, and based on that, you have to make an informed decision. And the more informed that you are, the more the better likelihood, or tendency for success, that you'll have in whatever your endeavor is. Because
Right.
another thing that we're talking about is, what do you really want, you know in life, out of life and everything. So no, I just wanted to reiterate, what you and
No, that's true. No, that's
yeah,
true, because with the energy in music, if you think about the energy in music, going back to the energy thing you were saying, you can turn on a certain song and feel happy, or a certain song put you in a sad mood. That's energy.
yeah,
It's almost like music is a universal language.
yeah.
And
It is.
even
Yeah,
if
when you say,
somebody
yeah,
don't,
yeah, absolutely,
and even if people don't understand the language or speak the language, they still get the music.
right. It's
And I
frequency.
know that for a fact, because I see some of my fan base overseas where, like, they're typing stuff out and I'm having to Google translate it. And it translates to, oh yeah, this made me feel like this and that, so that lets me know, like, even how we feel when we're making the music is putting that energy into it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and things are changing. I feel like people are waking up. And when I say waking up, I'm not talking about this political stuff. I'm talking about waking up to, like, spiritual stuff
get
and
them.
understanding, like, hey, I want a life that I'm going to be more fulfilled in, instead of being boxed in this way. It's a higher percentage of the population that's really heading toward that.
Right, right.
So what you're doing in this path that you're on is super, super important. It's super important because you're transcending people.
Yeah,
Not only with your music, but with the other stuff you're going to be doing, your motivation stuff. You know what I mean? It is. I think it's great, man. To really have somebody who's like-minded, and you want to transcend people. You want to have a message. You're serving people.
right.
It's not all about, hey, I just want to blow up. I'm the one who may have sinned, and I just want to bling it out. I'm not saying you ain't gonna do that, but you know what I mean. But what's driving you is wanting to get your message out, and people feel that, man. They feel it. Like I think even people who aren't fully into the style of genre you're in would still take to your music because it's something about it that's different.
Right, right.
That's what I get from it. So,
And what you said about, growing people and transcending people too, like, it's kind of ironic that we separate wealth from that, don't you think? Because, like,
exactly.
you make money, if we're just being purely material here, you make
Right.
money from people, right? And if you affect, if you transcend people on that level where it's like that riveting enough. It's just natural. Like the money's gonna come like naturally. Like, so like don't even like
There you
jump on
go.
the small stuff, like
Right there.
so
That's it right there.
priorities, right?
if you if
you
you
know,
if you do what your mission is, you keep doing what you're doing.
and your
Yes,
purpose.
the money's going to come. Yeah, you might have to do some business things, but you know what? It is going to come, because nothing beats being able to have it come, but you're doing what your soul wants you to do.
Right. You
Nothing
can
beats that.
you can have decorations, like the pretty stuff and everything like that, and still like be dead like on the inside, if you're not living in your purpose and affecting people in the way that you're meant to do. Like, what is all the wealth in the world, physical material wealth, if you don't have any, internally.
That's true. Yeah, because wealth is really a state of mind.
Right. Exactly. And that change has to happen first, so
Yes,
I'm glad we're having this discussion. We have to be having this for a reason. That change, you have to internalize that change, before it's reflected in your immediate reality. Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because really, and there are some skeptics that say, "Oh, that mindset mumble jumble," but the reason why it's important is because if you're thinking wealthy, that's going to impact the decisions you make.
Right.
That's going to impact the passion and the drive of what you're doing.
Right.
And it's also going to impact, and this is just my opinion, the vibration that you put out and how you're drawing people to you.
Right. Right.
So, so the light went out there. So
I didn't even notice.
so,
Just so in tune to what you're saying.
But yeah, so I feel like when it comes to this, like the whole mindset of that is so important, because that does drive how your plan of action is going to be.
Right. Right.
Because
you're focused more on the long term than just the immediate, like short, instant gratification.
Exactly.
Like you're going for like the whole cake instead of like a crumb.
Right.
That goes back to like what I had this recent discussion on, like a separate, we're talking about other endeavors, right? I have like this podcast that we're kind of, inching into that direction of podcasting, but one of the things that we had just discussed recently is the return on exchange of a life,
Mm-hmm.
And just I know it sounds, might sound like an abstract concept, but just bear with me. Like, so we all come into this life, and everything is an exchange. We've been having this discussion about energy and translation and communication. That's an exchange of words. There's an exchange of frequency, energy, communication, but value at the end of the day in any, in all aspects. There's an exchange in value that takes place. And there has to be, and in order for there to be a perceived value on a life or a soul, etc., you have to leave this earth, this life, in a greater capacity, or being more valuable than when you came in. Just like when a new company or a currency enters the marketplace, right? It doesn't just stay at the same value that it entered, right? And how does that happen? With that that transition, that what was the word that you used earlier? It started with a T. Transformative, something to that,
Might have been ascension.
yeah. The ascension takes place, throughout, because of the experiences, that you have throughout life. And if you're limiting your experiences, your potential for growth, relationships, if you're just staying, secluded in that same thing, it just goes back to you. If you're not growing, you're dying. You're on your way out. But, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
I
pretty
say
deep.
all that to say that, if you're going for the big gusto, the cake, as opposed to like crumbs, you have you can't be short-sighted. You have to see
Right.
the long-term vision, you know, instead of this world that we're living in.
What's that saying? Play chess instead of checkers.
Right. And I actually do play chess, and I you know, that's now I was going to say that for another discussion or something like that, but yeah, we got to play chess if you play sometime. I bet you're pretty good. Like I'm decent. I'm all right. I used to play back in in school and everything like that, and tournaments, but yeah. Long story short, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I love strategy. Like anything strategy is cool. Like trying to take something from nothing and turn it into something. That's like the most awesome thing.
Right. That's life, though. Like,
yeah.
And people just think, you know, it's a totally random game, and they'll be playing the lottery, you know, hypothetically speaking, with life, and just hit that, you know, that what is it called? I don't even go to casinos or anything like that, but because I like taking
like the slot machines and stuff.
Yeah, the slot machine. Thank you. Like life is like a slot machine, you know, or playing like lottery or scratch offs and everything like that. When if they actually invested all that time, energy, money, etc., you know, into something where they could take strategic, trackable, you know, measurable progress, you know, they have much more success in that. But I guess that's too hard. But I mean, I guess it comes back to focusing on your strengths and weaknesses, right?
That's true. And also like being honest with yourself. But you know what gets me with the mindset piece is like, it's easier for people to go and spend half the paycheck on some shoes and clothes.
Preach.
But if they had to invest that, it's like, oh, I don't know. I might lose my money. And it's like, don't you understand that every time you're spending money, you're paying somebody else dividends?
Right.
You're paying somebody else dividends. like every time you make these decisions, instead of like, to me, the best investment is yourself, hands down, first and foremost. And the second best investment is, and this is just my opinion, this isn't investment advice for anybody listening or anything like that, but I personally think the second best investment is something that constantly generates. Like, I know you got the crypto out there, but my preference is personally stocks, only because that's been my jam. So it's nothing against anything else, and nothing to say nothing else can't work for somebody else. But
the point is an asset that's going to continually generate income.
Exactly. Right. Those are my favorite ones. Now, as far as the risky ones, yeah, it's okay to take a chance as long as don't be greedy, don't be desperate, and only do it within your means. You know what I mean? That would be my suggestion if I had to tell anybody anything about it.
No, I think that's facts and proof.
Because think about this though, when somebody's desperate or greedy, oh, I'm gonna put my whole thing into this coin.
And that comes from that scarcity mindset, right? Which
exactly.
Frequency, lower vibration.
And I'm not saying it can't work, but you know, the stories of the people who are making millions and billions off of it, they were into it before the masses got into it.
Right.
They took that chance at that, but something told them to take a chance at that time. But to me, once you hear about it, once it's on the news, and once it's a fad that everybody's talking about, kind of late.
So, to that self-awareness and making informed decisions.
Right. Yeah, and I heard through the grapevine you make T-shirts too. So where can we all scoop up some shirts and stuff? You know?
Yeah, we're starting to get into that. So yeah, like I told you, the website itself is still, you know, under construction. Maybe like within a week of the release of this video, you know, we should be up. So you could go to onewhomayascend.com. If you want to join the street team, which that site is fully in full operation, you could go to go.onewhomayascend.com. But yeah, support the movement, be a part of it, you know, and like this whole conversation, this whole discussion, it's not just about me, you know, like that if you ever get anything out of the brand, you know, it's about us, because me is us. That's how I see it. There's that saying, I want to say it was a Silver right leader of in some capacity. I don't know if it was MLK or who, but nobody is free until we all are, right?
Right.
And if my purpose, if my objective in life is freedom, then like that's all inclusive, and injustice anywhere is injustice, everywhere.
True. Facts. That's true.
That's important.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know how
true.
much time you have. I didn't mean to keep,
Oh no, you're good. It's Friday, you know what I mean? Everybody feeling
right.
good. So everybody's watching right now or listening right now. They just thinking about the weekend. So this is fired up Friday. This is for, feeding people. So that's what you're doing. So hey, there's no limit here. You go as long as you go.
I want to go on a tangent. I had like two more things, at least in the foreseeable future, that I wanted to ask you about, or at least make a book recommendation. I don't know if you've heard or if you're familiar with the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
You're the third person that mentioned that book to me.
Yeah, well, it's a sign. I'm letting you know. I highly recommend it because earlier in our discussion, we were talking about universal consciousness and perspective. And you said something that we're coming into a new generation where people are becoming more conscious,
right.
And we're ushering in that era. And that's what the book is about, as well as shedding, your identity and your ego to become, more one with all things,
Right.
And I just finished that book recently within the past week or so, and it's like my fourth favorite book now. It's really up there, and so I just wanted to recommend that to you and all your listeners. Yeah.
What's the
also,
other? You said that's your fourth favorite. What's the other three favorites?
Okay. So
how you gonna give us the fourth favorite? We don't want four. We want number one.
Because the other, I mean, just like a top list of anything is going to give a lot of psychological data about a person, right? Whether it's movies, books, artists, or anything like that. So I didn't want to give y'all too much, but I guess could to put in more context of who I am as a person. My first, and tell me if you've read these or how familiar you are if you heard about them or anything like that. My first favorite book of all time is The 48 Laws of Power.
Okay, I've read that one before.
I thoroughly enjoy it, have them memorized and everything, and even people in my close circle, we refer to it, on the regular basis.
Okay.
Second is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
No way.
Yeah.
All right. Keep going.
What was that reaction? What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure if I can talk about it right. Well, maybe I can. Well, all I'm going to say is I did a. This isn't about me today, so, but I did a chapter. All I'm going to say is if you've read that book, an author that you're familiar with in that circle, I just wrote a chapter in a book with this author, and it will be released through Simon & Schuster. Okay. And my chapter talks about success and mindset, a lot of the stuff we just discussed.
Who's the author of that book?
I'm not going to say it yet. I just want to wait. I like to wait until things are out. But it's a connection. So when it happens, you'll see. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
You have more details on that. That's exciting.
Yeah, I just like this. I like to wait for things to be out before I mention stuff. You know what I mean? Because you never know what happens with things. I mean, it's a 99.99% chance everything is fine, but somebody might be having a bad day, and I'm gonna stop that book production. You know what I mean?
Something gets out there.
It's completely out of my control, but I've already contributed my part to it. I've already done all that, and it's what gets me. Not to interrupt what you're saying, it's the perception, and to me, it's like let's say you have us here, right now, and let's say you're not super well known. Some people know you, but you're not well known. But let's say that you go and do something and now you have a bestseller, or you're doing something with the bestseller and now you become known and now this. What's the difference in the information? There's no
Right.
difference. You
Right.
are who you are. So the same way that you're thinking now is the same you when you have all these accolades. And so
Right.
what I don't get is why do people wait until they see, so it's almost like they need that to see proof and validation of who
Oh, I
you are.
totally
Some
agree.
people.
It makes total sense to me because that's easy. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You're playing the safe game, right? You're playing on something that already blew up. You're investing in something that everybody's talking about. There's no risk involved. People want low risk, high reward. You know,
Yeah.
I could go on about that subject, but I mean that makes sense. But
Yeah, it
that's
still
not what
just
we're
doesn't make
about.
sense to me. It should make sense. Like I hear you logically, but to me, it's like
No,
if
just because I understand it doesn't mean I agree with it. So disclaimer there. Disclaimer. Yeah. Because I mean, we're talking about taking artistic risks, right? So
Right,
like that, yeah, that's not who we are. But
right.
I just understand it. That's not how we rock and roll, you know. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Wolves,
Yeah.
foxes, they be out there, predators, you know, looking for easy come up. Yeah.
And then what was your third book? I have a good memory.
The Bible, the Bible. If you talk with me long enough, I'll make so many references, you know. And I want to get more into like spiritual, other spiritual books, you know,
Right.
and that sort of thing. But yeah, being born and raised, well, not born in Texas, but raised in Texas. I was born in Tennessee, but like that whole Bible Belt, you know, and come from a family household, you know, where that's prominent.
Right.
So yeah, fourth would be A New Earth, and then five, uh, The Mastery of Love.
Okay.
That's yeah by I believe it's a Mexican author. I really like and enjoy that. And then I think I have like a top six. I don't have like 10 yet. Like it's not fully fleshed out, but like
Right.
six is The Surrender Experiment.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me. Have you read it? You familiar with
No,
it?
no, no. I've
Okay.
heard of it, but I've never read it.
So have you read? Or are you familiar with The Alchemist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So pretty much based purely because uh, it was fictional. You know, The
Mhm,
Alchemist was fictional. That's pretty
mhm.
much why I didn't like it. It wasn't bad or anything like that, and I like really
Right.
resonated with it. But what I liked about the Surrender Experiment was that it's nonfiction. It's pretty much autobiography, and but it reminded me of The Alchemist. It had the same similar themes and everything like that. And because it was nonfiction, I like that one more than The Alchemist. You know, but
Right. I see what
yeah,
you're
it's kind of
saying.
like The Alchemist, but nonfiction. You know, so.
Right. Because it was relatable.
Right, right, exactly. And yeah, yeah, feasible, etc. Yeah.
Right. Well, is
But
there anything else you want to share or anything else you want to enlighten the audience on?
one last thing, I probably should have mentioned this first, but like a small like tidbit, um, inchling of a conversation. But we were talking about how music is like a frequency and it like communicates, right?
Right.
And I'm not trying to get like too deep or anything like that, and I don't even know too much about it honestly. But like quantum physics, right? I don't know how familiar you are with like quantum physics, where they've proven that if you're like yelling at whether it's like a tree or a plant or like water droplets, you know, if you yell at any of those, you know, quote unquote inanimate, you know, but they're living, you know, uh, things, they'll have a different um, composition. I don't know if it's like if it's safe to say like chemical composition or like physical composition, but
Hmm.
they'll be structured differently. They'll be more rigid, you know, in their design. If you were look at them like as like chemical compounds, whereas opposed to if you say, you know, like blessings, like I love you, or thank you, or express like gratitude towards any of these things, you know, they have more, and beauty is an eye of the beholder, right? But like more I guess, softer or pretty or beautiful, structures. If
Right.
you think about that, and like we're composed of like majority water, you know,
True.
or you know, anything else, in life, you know. Um, I just feel like that's so important. Like whether it's musically uh, or speaking things into existence, even mindset, you
Right.
know, and the environment that we surround ourselves in. I just felt like that was an important little.
No, that's good information. No,
Yeah,
that's good because like that impacts how people are interacting and vibrating with each other.
right,
You
right,
know, you have somebody who's just preaching hate, 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 hate.
right.
They're gonna still attract some people, but they're gonna attract a certain type of people.
Back to that
Versus,
abundance of what you speak into existence.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's facts, man. And just like as artists, a lot of who we are, if we're honest with ourselves and we put a lot of who we are into our music, we're going to draw people who is drawn to that.
right.
That's really the real secret to drawing your ideal audience is being
Right.
honest with yourself and being honest with them, because people are
That's
tired of fake. They're tired of
right.
it. You can just tell.
And everything you're saying to me is like so reaffirming right now because going back to not wanting to be limited and
Right.
being like wanting freedom, like I'm attracting other people who want freedom, and therefore they're not going to box me in, artistically
Yep.
or financially, etc. So thank you. I feel like it's a very important conversation to have, very therapeutic. I
Yes,
really
sir.
appreciate it. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
time flies.
Yeah, man, I wasn't expected to hold you here so
No,
long.
no, no, it's all good. It's all good. Well,
Yeah.
if you have any other last words, the floor is yours.
No, just, like I said, I dropped those two links in there. OneHumanIsSin.com. We have a few things that we're looking out at in regards to new developments. We have like a collaborative project EP that we're working on in the works and everything. We're also potentially looking at, and this goes back to what you said, not wanting to put too much out there before it comes to fruition, but don't be surprised if we have a crowdfunding campaign uh, here in the near future
All
and
right.
with the larger artists, and come to find out we share the same videographer, and he's really in tune with the audience that I've been working with, the people that are more likely to facilitate your growth and freedom and that sort of thing
We're
you
gonna
know
put that out in the air then. It's happening.
so so we're looking at recruiting him for a track and a music video, and we'd be in together and everything. uh, yeah, those are two of the more prominent things that are on our plate. We also have some music videos in the vault and everything like that, and we're just working out, ironing out the marketing and tuning in, our target audience and
Right.
thing like that. But,
Yeah,
yeah, other than
you make
that,
some good music videos.
thank you,
I think
thank
it was
you.
one I remember. I forget what song it was for. Where you was in this chair and this girl was pouring this stuff over your head or
Oh
something.
yeah, that's darkness. Darkness. Yeah, we did that. That's coming on about a year anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool video. I was like, okay, and you all shaking and stuff.
Yeah, I like to be dramatic.
That video
Yeah.
make you want to just go.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. Definitely brings back memories. But yeah.
All
So those
right,
are.
well, it was good having you on today. And for
Yeah.
everybody who's listening, his website is www.onewhomayassin.com. That's ONEWHOMAYASCEND.com. And if you love what he's doing, you want to join his street team, just go to go.onewhomayassin.com.
Awesome. Thanks again
All
so much.
right.
I really appreciate it. Let me know when it's out. I didn't mean to hold you so long. You might
Oh,
have to
no,
like
no, no. You're good.
segments or parts or something like that. But yeah, let me know. Let me know when it's out.
All
Excellent.
right. And this wraps it up for this edition of Fired Up Friday.
Yes, sir.
Woohoo! All right. right, y'all, get at us.